The Wonder Years, sometimes dramatic, sometimes hilarious, always able to strike just the right emotional chord. TVography, our look at classic television shows and the stars that made them great. Tonight, The Wonder Years, which took its audience on a magical tour of suburban life in the late 1960s. The writing and first-person narrative enabled us to see the world through the eyes of Kevin Arnold, who was coming of age in an age of turbulence. He was an ordinary kid, but there was nothing ordinary about the Wonder Years.
Honey, are you okay?
It's a tough time in life when you're struggling for manhood and your mother still outweighs you by 50 pounds.
It evoked an era and a period in everyone's life.
Young man!
It was about his little piece of turf, you know, his claim in the world rather than the world around him.
It brought back happy memories and a longing for a simpler time.
Butthead.
To work? It was a period piece, but yet it didn't seem like it had been that far away. Hot dogs or hamburgers for dinner?
For me, it was capturing my youth.
Throughout its award-winning run, The Wonder Years built a big following out of life's small moments.
All the comedy had to be really subtle and really about the characters.
Hi, hon. How's work?
Work's work.
So many times people on the street would say, gosh, you know, it feels like my childhood. I think that's when it started to hit me. Wow, this is really telling these people's stories. Oh, sorry. Excuse me.
The show that would take millions of viewers down memory lane began life in 1987 as the brainchild of husband and wife producing team Neal Marlens and Carol Black. The pair were veterans of ABC's hit Growing Pains, and with that series and other sitcoms like The Cosby Show and Family Ties dominating the ratings, Marlens and Black decided to write a family-friendly comedy of their own. But unlike its predecessors, The Wonder Years was set in the late 1960s, a turbulent period in politics and culture that would serve as a backdrop to the everyday life of Kevin Arnold, an average 11-year-old boy growing up in the suburbs. The script was also different in its innovative use of a running voiceover commentary from the perspective of the adult Kevin.
Kevin Arnold was a great universal, that's me, that's the guy who's goes one step forward and one step back. I mean, life just doesn't always work out.
What they created was this world which, on one hand, was so silly and insignificant, a seventh grader's junior high school experience. I mean, it sounds so trivial. And yet, by adding the overlay of the older Kevin Arnold looking back at this, everything which continues to be so funny also has a sharp pang to it.
Although the other networks passed on the script, executives at ABC were intrigued and saw how the show might appeal to the huge baby boomer audience, many of whom had come of age in the 60s. The network was lagging behind in the ratings race and was willing to take risks to get back on top.
I think that there was still, for a lot of the executives in 1980, there's still a sense that if they personally felt that the show was strong, that counted for something.
ABC gave the go-ahead for a pilot episode. Production company New World Entertainment funded the enterprise, and Marlens and Black began auditioning talent. Finding the right child actor to play the lead character of Kevin Arnold was the key to the show's success or failure. The search was soon over. Nearly every casting director in town recommended an 11-year-old from Chicago named Fred Savage, who had appeared in the movies The Princess Bride and Vice Versa. The producers quickly offered Fred the job. He accepted after clearing it with his parents, Joanne and Lou, who wanted to make sure their son's career didn't ruin his life.
I think my parents more than I, because I was still, I was like 11 or 12, I was young. But I think they had a sense of what that could mean. If a series gets picked up and is successful, that means we're in LA, for potentially years, So I think that the script was so fantastic that I said, I think this is worth it.
Well, the jockstrap
sir, is a particular type of strap that's constructed of a strap-type material which is utilized exclusively for the purposes of jacks.
Equally important was casting the other Kevin, the voice of the narrator. Actor Daniel Stern, who had come to fame in the movie Diner, was happy to audition for the part.
I went in and did a sort of an anonymous reading of the script. I was contestant number 6 or something like that, because they didn't want to, I think they didn't want to have the baggage of who the person was. They just wanted it to be straight voice, and I got the job.
To play Norma Arnold, Kevin's traditional homemaker mom, the show's creators hired Allie Mills.
Not only was I not married, but I'd never played a mother. When I read the script, I thought, why is she thinking of me? This is ridiculous. I'd played sort of tough, you know, cuspy, edgy, sarcastic people.
When your father gets back, try not to make him crazy.
For the character of Kevin's father, grouchy Jack Arnold, the network was hoping to land a famous name. But Marlens and Black lobbied hard for Dan Lauria, a little-known theater actor they had worked with on Growing Pains.
When I went in to audition for the networks, I almost blew it again. I had a very good audition, and out of the dark, one of the executives said, "You realize this is a great role?" And I yelled back, said, "No, Richard III's a great role. This is a pretty good role. So it'll be a lot of fun." Neal said he could have killed me when I said that.
For the rest of the main characters, Kevin's friends and siblings, Black and Marlens picked kids based more on real-life traits than professional experience. Olivia Dabo, a British teen with a bohemian upbringing, was cast as Kevin's hippie big sister, Karen.
I was a teenager myself, so I was drawing off of just that kind of like innate rebellion that was kind of existing within me at the time.
I'm gonna get some birth control pills. I thought you should know.
Hear what I just heard.
The producers selected newcomer Danica McKellar to play Winnie Cooper, the love of Kevin's life.
I'll never forget it because Fred was sitting there and I didn't know who he was, but I just thought he was adorable. It's like, oh, who's that? I wonder if that's the guy, you know. I mean, I was 12 and he was 12 and I thought he was cute.
Come on, Kevin, stop gabbing with your girlfriend.
She's not my girlfriend.
For the part of Kevin's brash and bullying older brother Wayne, Black and Marlens chose young Hollywood veteran Jason Hervey.
He's just really sweet, and he's also completely his character. You won't mind me saying this. I mean, I love him because he's always a butthead.
Uh-oh. Think girlfriend's mad at you? Maybe better go give her a big French kiss.
Shut up, Wayne.
In order to land the role of Paul, Kevin's nerdy best friend, Josh Saviano demonstrated a very special ability.
They asked me in particular if I could wheeze, because the character called for an asthmatic, allergic wheezer. And I couldn't wheeze at all. And I said, well, what if I sneeze? And they said, yeah, that would work. And I did it, and I remember Neal looked at me and he goes, that's it.
With the cast in place, the Wonder Years pilot went into production.
Like about half the schools in the country that year, my school was being renamed Robert F. Kennedy Junior High. As we approached those doors for the first time, we felt we were approaching the portals of manhood.
To give the show a sense of intimacy, Black and Marlens opted against the common practice of filming in front of a live studio audience. Instead, they shot with a single camera on location in suburban Los Angeles.
Where do you want to sit? Anywhere. Let's just sit here.
A suburban junior high school cafeteria is like a microcosm of the world. In effect, in junior high school, who you are is defined less by who you are than by who's the person sitting next to you. A sobering thought.
The initial episode followed Kevin Arnold's traumatic first days in junior high and his growing infatuation with the girl next door.
Hi, Kevin. Hi, Paul. Winnie Cooper? Gwendolyn. I don't want to be called Winnie anymore. My real name is Gwendolyn.
Well, there was no question now. We were entering uncharted territory.
The show immediately tackled a familiar moment to almost everyone, the first kiss.
There were 6 takes for that, for the kissing scene.
Marker, coming marker.
And they couldn't use the first one because right before we kissed, I like smiled. I was just too excited. I was like, there was too much anticipation.
You know, it's very nerve-wracking. You know, I'm young. I don't think I kissed a girl before that. You know, I don't know, kissing girls. And our moms were there, and I remember at the end, like, they stand up and applauded us, you know.
Although warm and nostalgic, the episode also captured the darker side of life in the 60s, with the death of Winnie's big brother in Vietnam.
And then it happened. I think we were about halfway to the front porch.
Brian Cooper was killed.
That's what Neal and Carol said in the pilot. It was the wonder years because it was the end of them. It was the end of innocence, I think, to see that war and people dying, you know, from our backyards right on television, which is why I think it's so important that Winnie's brother died in the pilot.
What was so good about the show is it kind of had this bittersweet, melancholic texture to it.
Any doubts about the innovative format were quickly forgotten when ABC executives saw the finished pilot.
When they showed it to the head of ABC, Brandon Stoddard, and he went out on a limb for a lot of really great television shows, and he fought for that show, and he put it after the Super Bowl.
Producers Black and Marlens were stunned when they learned their show would premiere with plenty of fanfare and a big ad campaign immediately following the 1988 Super Bowl. The Wonder Years was getting a powerful, high-profile introduction, and if it didn't perform spectacularly, it would be over almost before it had begun.
Yes, but my own theory is...
You've got a tough row to hoe, young man. A tough row to hoe.
Yes.
Would you do if I sang out of tune? Would you stand up and walk out on me?
On January 31st, 1988, The Wonder Years made its debut on ABC, and the cast and crew held their breath.
My mom had a Super Bowl party, and we had a bunch of friends and family over, and we watched the Wonder Years afterwards, and everyone sat around, and I sat down like this.
To the delight of everyone involved, millions of viewers stayed tuned to check out the new show, and TV critics showered it with praise.
I found myself one moment laughing hysterically at Wonder Years, the next moment tearing up because it had this wonderful mixture of humor and nostalgia that I thought was so honest.
ABC immediately commissioned 5 more episodes to finish out the season. The Wonder Years had made it into the primetime lineup.
My mom and dad were shocked. I had never done a pilot before, so I just didn't know any better. You know, pilots are supposed to go to series. That's what they're supposed to do. Little did I know that very few of them actually make it to series.
The show's success meant a huge change for its star, Fred Savage. He and his siblings, Ben and Kayla, moved out to LA with their mother, Joanne, while their father, Lou, flew in from Chicago every weekend.
We'd never done anything like this before, you know, and I think it was just all very exciting for the whole family, for all of us, you know. I mean, it was a great thing to be a part of.
The show's producers, Carol Black and Neal Marlens, also faced big challenges. They now had to recreate 1960s suburban life on a weekly basis.
Some of the costumes and wigs and those kinds of things look absolutely preposterous now that you look back, and people say that's got to be, they look like they're going to a Halloween party.
Black and Marlens knew that just the right costumes and props were essential if the show was to strike a chord with baby boomers in the audience.
Their attention to detail was something I'd never experienced in any work I'd ever done on television. It was very costly to take that much time. I mean, literally the buttons on your sweater, the earrings you'd wear. What do you think?
Matter of fact, Allie and I would get upset because every time there was a question about something, they would look at us because we were the two old timers.
The Wonder Years was designed to make nostalgic viewers think of the show as a window on their personal pasts. So it was set in an unspecified location.
It didn't take place in, you know, Boston or Chicago or LA or San Francisco. It just took place in like any town USA. So people could project their own experiences onto it.
But the show's scripts were even more important than its setting, and Black and Marlens paid special attention to the voiceover narration.
Sex ed class, 7th grade.
Now, the female reproductive organs look like this.
Unfortunately, it looked more like a cow's head to me.
The interesting thing was that it really wasn't a voiceover. I mean, it was a great character.
When Winnie got back from her uncle's, we went for a walk in the park. Neither of us said a word about it, of course, but we both knew that the park was where you went to make out.
What he could do with those words and the twists and the comedy he could put on them, or the really deep feeling he put in, made the show in many ways what it was.
I didn't know what to do. Our first kiss had happened so naturally, I couldn't even remember how I did it. Did I breathe through my mouth or my nose? Well, I had to make some kind of move.
There was a bug on you. Oh. Thanks.
Some move.
All the care that went into the initial casting showed in the chemistry between the actors.
So Herbie was definitely like a big brother. Tell me about girls, and I was just captivated by his tales of the nightlife and all these things he'd tell me.
There's nothing stopping this kid. He's like a machine out there.
Josh and I, you know, really hit it off, and, you know, we're good friends.
We were both 11, I think, and we didn't know anybody in California. So we naturally became very close very quickly. We bonded over boy things, over Nintendo, over video games, over baseball cards.
Hi. What's she doing?
Danica's an angel. She's very, very well disciplined, Danica. And so we did everything we could to shake her, but to no avail.
I do my scenes, and then we're done, and then I go back to score. I was a big nerd. I really was.
Cameron, honey, you said you were going to come home early and help me with dinner.
Peace, Mom, okay?
My relationship with Olivia was a lot like, I think, Kevin and Karen. I was always just so in awe and kind of intimidated by it.
I felt very protective over him. I just think he's the most adorable thing on the face of the earth, and I always will.
Veteran actors Dan Lauria and Allie Mills also took the youngsters under their wings.
Dan and Allie, they weren't like authoritarian figures or you know, disciplinarians at all.
I wasn't married, I didn't have kids, and I developed this weirdly maternal relationship with him, even though he was also like one of my close friends as a little kid.
I loved working with Fred. On the first day of working on the Wonder Years, they said, you know, if you could help this kid out, it'd be great. And I said, yeah, sure, anything I can do. You know, I did one scene with Fred. I turned around to everybody and said, don't anybody help this kid out.
Dan taught me a lot. He would sit down and show me old movies. That was our whole relationship was built around watching old movies together and talking about old directors and old film stars and going over to his house on weekends and watching, you know, double features he'd put together for me. Cagney double features, that was his favorite, was Cagney.
But despite the harmony on the set, the producers made sure that the Wonder Years reflected the ups and downs faced by most families.
I told you to knock it off!
The family itself was so interesting to me because it was not a perfect family. It was a loving family, but at the same time the father was uncommunicative and gruff. The mother was sort of off and a little spacey at times. The big brother used to, pummel the little brother.
Kevin's growing pains were usually mined for comedy, but they also led to some of the show's most affecting episodes.
There was just one wonderful episode where his father takes him to work with him, and he looks up to his father because his father has sort of a low-level executive job.
I'll never forget how I felt at that moment. I felt that my father was a great man.
What the hell is this, Arnold? This is incompetence, just plain incompetence.
Look, Al, Wyzanski's a little
No,
bit...
never mind Wyzanski. He works for you. Now, this is the third major screw-up in your department in the last 2 months.
And his father is royally chewed out by his boss in front of Kevin. But in no way does Kevin look down on his father because of this. And I never forget that the scene where they both come home. The father walks in, he's angry as heck. Then the door opens again and Kevin walks in, and he's angry as heck. He's become like a reflection of his father. And the respect is still there. Here I go tearing up again. It was just an incredible episode, great television.
The Wonder Years' brief first season was a resounding success, and ABC took the unusual step of renewing it for 3 more years. And in September of 1988, the show surprised everyone in the television world when it won the Emmy Award for Best Comedy Series, beating out such established hits as Cheers and The Golden Girls.
It was really, really exciting because we all went up as a family, and there was no question that it was just going to be one person. We were all going to go up and get the award.
But the cast and crew's joy was short-lived. They were soon shocked by an unexpected decision and wondered if the show could survive a major creative change that was just around the corner. The Wonder Years began its second season as a critical darling with a devoted following. But halfway through that year, the series faced its first major crisis when creators Neal Marlens and Carol Black abruptly announced they were leaving for personal reasons that the intensely private couple kept to themselves.
When I heard they were leaving, I was devastated and freaked because I was sure that was going to be it.
Marlens and Black turned their creation over to writer and producer Bob Brush. The pair had been the show's main writers, so now Brush had no scripts and no time to catch up.
It was a big responsibility. This was really a quite wonderful show, and we had a big changeover of staff. And that's when I brought over Ken Topolsky to line produce the show, who was a tremendous support.
Met Bob for breakfast. He said, look, I need a producer, and I've got no scripts. You interested? I said, how bad is it? He goes, it's horrible. I said, great, sign me up.
As he took charge of the show's scripts, Brush continued the storyline that dealt with Kevin's on-again, off-again romance with Winnie Cooper.
There's no reason I can't talk to Winnie. We're still friends. All I have to do is go up to her and say, Winnie?
The way that Winnie Cooper was portrayed was always from a distance. You know, even when Kevin and Winnie were close, Winnie was still this unknown entity. There's always this air of mystery and like, who is that person and what's going on?
Well, did you show it to anybody?
Show what?
The yearbook. You know what I wrote? You can just forget about it, okay? Because I didn't mean a word of it. And you can just rip out the page and throw it in the garbage because...
Mom and Nate, now don't be shy. Grab your lady and pass on by.
First love could be a grueling, nerve-wracking ordeal.
Action, girls, go.
Not unlike planning a TV production around child actors. Minors could only be on the set for 9.5 hours each day, and much of that time was taken up with mandatory schooling sessions, recreation breaks, and meals.
The biggest thing that affected the schedules certainly were working with minors, and particularly one that was in every scene.
every minute's accounted for. So you'd go to the bathroom and like there'd be someone like, okay, he's in the bathroom for like, 45 seconds or 3 minutes if I had a lot to eat. As a kid, you want to goof off. You'd always try and escape and dodge. You have little hiding places around the stage. You could kind of get away from people,
Even with the scheduling constraints, the producers made a point of giving the kids something resembling a normal childhood.
That's my brother. That's my brother's best friend.
Hi, Mike. Nice to meet you.
We had a basketball court, the pit, which was an old storage pit, and all the crew guys used to come out and play with us.
Bob Brush and Ken Topolsky, they would get really mad at me. But I said, we gotta play. This is a boy. So I did things like, once I put peas in my nose. And when it was on his close-up, I went with the peas into my Coke. And we ended up doing stuff like that a lot off camera. If it was somebody else's close-up, we'd try to crack them up.
Although life behind the scenes revolved around the young actors, the show itself often tackled serious adult themes, including problems in the Arnold marriage.
Where are you going?
Better get your Pepsi while it's still fresh on my mind.
Dan and Allie had this huge scene where they had to fight in the kitchen.
Don't bother. I'll get it.
No, that's okay, Jack. I'll get it.
I said I'll get it.
Don't break it!
I'm not going to break it, Norma.
Well, just because you hate my potteries, no reason.
Dan and Allie were terrific, just great performances. And then we shot Fred out there listening, and he was doing his beautiful face. I mean, and it's such a hard thing to just sit there and listen.
His family needs Pepsi.
He was so brilliant at that. Ended up playing the whole thing on Fred, actually.
Jack, you should listen to yourself. I want my Pepsi. I want my cup. You sound like an infant.
Don't you ever speak to me in that tone of voice.
I'll speak the way I want.
Fine. Don't expect me to listen to it.
This is a comedy that didn't always have to be funny to be good. You could be watching and not necessarily laughing, but responding on an emotional level.
Throughout the second and third seasons, the character of Kevin Arnold continued to face the perils of adolescence.
They seem awfully roomy in the crotch.
Gee, Mom, could you say it a little louder? I'm not sure everyone in the store heard.
Attention shoppers, attention shoppers. Plenty of room in Kevin Arnold's crotch.
He also had to confront the hard facts of life.
Mr. Collins?
Mr. Arnold?
There were these 3 episodes about Kevin and this math teacher. Everyone, hopefully, you're fortunate to have found one teacher that really spoke to you, that really meant something to you. And this was Kevin's.
The lowest common denominator.
Every day after school, Mr. Collins and I met to accomplish the improbable.
What law do we apply?
The commutative law.
Not in this case, the commutative.
But it wasn't all hard work. There was something more. It was the man himself.
Just X.
I liked him. I was getting to know him, and he was getting to know me.
Mr. Collins passed away this morning.
I was around the same time my grandfather passed away, recently. And, it just was very special to me. I mean, I guess I brought my own personal, stuff to making that episode of, someone who really, this person who meant a lot to you who you lose.
You don't have to grade it. It's an A.
Mr. Arnold.
Good job, Mr. Collins.
The episode Goodbye earned Emmys for its director Michael Dinner and its writer Bob Brush, who had proved beyond a doubt that the right man was running the show.
One of the wonderful things about the show was the fact that everybody involved with it was so dedicated to it. It was really a team effort from the word go, and the important thing was always to tell this story, these small stories of this kid that had such large ramifications.
The Wonder Years remained a steady ratings winner for ABC, but the series had a built-in expiration date. The young leads were growing up, and the Wonder Years couldn't last forever. In the summer of 1991, the cast and crew of The Wonder Years reconvened to begin work on the show's 5th season, but they were in for a surprise.
I grew literally 6 inches between April, when the season ended, and August, when we came back. And Sheila, who's the head wardrobe woman, looked at me and she shrieked. She went, "Oh!"
Over the summer, my best friend had gained 2 things: a new set of contact lenses and a new set of hormones.
I could be home right now making time with Julie Zeller.
Oh, you're dreaming, pal.
That's what happens in life. Dynamics change and people grow at different rates, and that means different things, and it affects relationships in different ways. And that just, you know, they worked it in. It was part of it.
The actors weren't just outgrowing their wardrobes. They needed new, more mature storylines as well.
We had to be really careful about the stories that we were telling, but we also wanted to be honest. I remember we were doing an episode one time where Kevin touches a girl's breast for the first time, and we would get these notes from Standards and Practice saying, "But this is Kevin Arnold. He can't touch a girl's breast."
I'm sorry. I'm not.
We tried to be honest and tried to, deal with the subject matter in a delicate way.
In 1992, Fred Savage experienced his own growth spurt, just as Joss Saviano had done the previous year.
I miss you today. I thought about you in chemistry.
Yeah, I thought about you in biology.
As Kevin Arnold was maturing into a young man, The Wonder Years began to lose some of its magic, and by the 6th season, the audience was losing interest.
Wait. I love this song.
Look, Winnie, are we really going to keep doing this?
Doing what?
Well, starting, stopping.
Mostly stopping.
Don't you think it's time we went a little further?
The kids' voices are going to change. Then the whole patina of the show changes. I mean, you can still write good stuff, it can still be a good show, but something is missing. And because when his voice changes, there's a sense of innocence that has vanished.
Hey, I just want you to know.
The on-set atmosphere also suffered a blow that year when a crew member accused Fred Savage and Jason Hervey of sexual harassment. It was a terrible shock for the tight-knit group when the scandal was splashed all over the tabloids.
I think we felt a tremendous sense of betrayal, especially because we all cared so much about the people who were involved.
The show's extended family rallied around the boys, and the matter was legally resolved behind closed doors. But with creative difficulties still plaguing the series, the cast began to hear rumors that The Wonder Years would soon come to an end.
The actors really didn't know what would happen if there'd be another year, and I think there's real mixed emotions about what they wanted.
The 1-hour final episode of the 6th season dealt with Kevin's difficult relationship with his father.
You know what your problem is?
Yeah, I can't stand it here.
You think you're too good for this job.
Yeah, that's right. That's right. 'Cause maybe this job is good enough for you, but it's not good enough for me.
Fine. You don't want to work here. I don't want you here.
And after 17 years of living under my father's thumb...
Okay, I quit. I'm out of here.
It also focused on his turbulent romance with Winnie Cooper.
Winnie,
With shooting almost complete, a decision still had not been made about the show's future.
What upset me was just that they didn't have the courtesy to decide. Just decide. Are you going to run it out? You know, do you think that it's over? You know, that's fine. It's just don't end it like this. End it with, you know, with a kind of dignity.
Filming concluded with a shot of all the characters watching a parade. Soon, Bob Brush and his team would write the narration that would either set up the next season or reveal the ultimate fates of Kevin Arnold and his family and friends. In the spring of 1993, Daniel Stern recorded the narration that would wrap up the 6th season of The Wonder Years. By the time he had finished, there was no doubt left about the show's fate.
The story of The Wonder Years had been told, and it was time to make a graceful exit. And that's what we did.
Karen's son was born that September. I gotta say, I think he looks like me. Poor kid. Mom, she did well. Businesswoman, board chairman, grandmother, cooker of mashed potatoes. The Wayner stayed on in furniture. Wood seemed to suit him. In fact, he took over the factory 2 years later, when Dad passed away.
Carol and Neal
2 years later, when Dad passed away.
Carol and Neal always wanted that to be the end. You know, that, you know, because that's one of the major things in a kid's life is when a parent dies.
Winnie left the next summer to study art history in Paris. Still, we never forgot our promise. We wrote to each other once a week for the next 8 years. I was there to meet her when she came home, with my wife and my first son, 8 months old. Growing up happens in a heartbeat. One day you're in diapers, next day you're gone. But the memories of childhood stay with you for the long haul.
When I got to the last speech, I went to read it, and it was very emotional. I mean, you know, like I was trying to not cry during the thing. And Bob Brush was sitting there, and he was getting weepy.
And the thing is, after all these years, I still look back with wonder.
The last line of the show was something like, hey, a kid comes in a door and says, hey, Dad, come play catch with me, in voiceover. They asked if my kid Henry would read that line. So me and Henry finished the show up.
Dad, wanna play catch?
I'll be right there.
After production had wrapped, ABC officially announced what had already been decided. The Wonder Years had been canceled.
There was a big cry, and we all were talking. It was very much like a cry of happiness. We'll miss you. What a great run, you know.
When the last episode aired on May 12, 1993, it meant the dissolution of an off-screen family that had nurtured young actors from childhood through adolescence.
Our last wrap party was just so cheesy and sentimental. I mean, it was so like, I love you, man. And it's true. It was 7 years with the same people. It was such a wonderful experience that it was so sad to see it go.
But unlike many child stars, the kids of the Wonder Years had no trouble moving on with their lives.
I had a really nice career doing films and doing other series, and I've had a child, which is amazing. I have a little boy called Oliver, and I'm doing an album right now.
I went to college. I graduated from Yale, and I'm in law school now. I'm expecting to graduate in the year 2003. I'm marrying a wonderful woman. I have a wonderful career ahead of me. I have a wonderful life.
Yes, there is life after the Wonder Years. I went to UCLA, and I graduated with a degree in mathematics, and I co-authored a research paper, Percolation and Gibbs States Multiplicity for Ferromagnetic Ashken-Teller Models in 2 dimensions.
I had all these experiences that I didn't have before because I was working. So you know the day-to-day experiences of you know going to school and hanging out with your buddies, and I was in a fraternity at college, and I mean I had a blast. I had an absolute blast.
After earning their degrees, Fred and Danica decided to return to show business. Fred starred in the NBC series Working and began directing episodic TV, while Danica made her stage musical debut in Grease and explored the independent film scene. Although excited about the future, they both stayed in touch with their friends and mentors from the past.
All right, great, cut. Moving on. So I started filmmaking, and my first project was a short film called Speechless, and Dan Laurie is actually in it with me.
Your last 9 reports were,
Brilliant.
clinical. Look, these patients are people. There's a lot more to this than a diagnostic manual. That's not what makes a great psychologist.
My first 9 reports got me to the top of my class.
Oh, well, I never said you weren't a great student.
Danica and Dan I see pretty often. Allie and Ken were at my parents' Super Bowl party on Sunday. You know, you've been with people for so long. I've seen their babies born and been to their weddings, you know, some of them. And, they're just part of your life, you know?
Have you ever thought about your life?
Nearly 10 years after it aired its final episode, The Wonder Years lives on in syndicated reruns and in the hearts of its cast and crew.
I remember when Nick at Night called it classic TV, and it was putting it up with shows like I Love Lucy. I was stunned. I wasn't expecting that.
It's a whole new generation of little, 4-year-olds, again, from every walk of life that are now watching it on different cable stations. It's so great. It seems to just kind of keep living.
The legacy of The Wonder Years is what it left in the hearts of the people who watched it. And the comment that you hear about The Wonder Years is not really, that was one of the funniest shows I've ever seen on television, or that was one of the most groundbreaking shows. But people do say that was a show that affected me the most.
We're so lucky that we got to be a part of something that was so special, you know? You just feel so blessed and so proud to have been a part of something that just meant so much to people.
Fred Savage now looks back at his time playing Kevin as his own Wonder Years. It was, he says, a wonderful place to go every day. Millions of television viewers felt the same way, and still do.